Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zheng. Today I will talk about the chips. I will talk about the chip and technology war, a timeless war between the US and China. And why China can't produce its own advanced chips despite its trillion-dollar investment. I will also do some updates on the power struggle between Xi Jinping and Chinese Premier Li Keqiang and what that means to the world. Perhaps you still remember that I promoted heavily the Shen Yun Performing Arts wonderful live show a while ago but have stopped recently as Shen Yun has finished its annual world tour. However, there is still a way to enjoy Shen Yun's wonderful performance when it is not touring. Watch this. Yes, Shen Yun Creations is the platform to go to continue to enjoy Shen Yun. It has both website version and cell phone apps. Sign up with the link I will post in the description box and you can save 10%. Now, let's move to our topics today. While everybody's attention was attracted by the PLA's live fire exercises around Taiwan, a war without smoke between the US and the CCP had silently started. According to South China Morning Post, Chinese and the US forces were locked in a reconnaissance and electronic warfare tussle in the lead up to and after US Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan. Apparently, a source within the PLA told South China Morning Post that although the Chinese military used naval and air forces to try to track Nancy Pelosi's flight, the tracking efforts failed. The source said almost all the PLA electronic warfare equipment couldn't work properly because they were all jammed by electronic interference by the American aircraft strike group sent by the Pentagon to escort her. So we can say that in this silent electronic warfare that happened in an unseen dimension, the PLA completely lost. This, from any angle, is not a small matter. It shows that the PLA is lagging far behind the US in terms of electronic warfare technology. Another significance of this matter is someone within the PLA actually chose to disclose this kind of top secret information to the South China Morning Post, which is owned by China's Alibaba Group. It is widely known that Alibaba Group and its founder Jack Ma have deep ties with former CCP leader Jiang Zeming's family and are at odds with Xi Jinping. So the fact that somebody within the PLA chose to disclose PLA's failure to the South China Morning Post indicates that perhaps Jiang's faction wanted to embarrass Xi Jinping, or PLA generals really don't want to fight with the US or fight for Xi Jinping at all, so they disclosed this kind of top secret. Anyway, this piece of news revealed a very important message: the gap between the US and the CCP in terms of technological strength. Also, there's another very important ongoing war between the US and the CCP that I haven't had time to talk about yet. And this war is the war surrounding chips. On the US side, the U.S. Bureau of Industry and Security announced a new ban on exporting semiconductor tech to China on August 12th, including specific electronic design automation EDA software for making 3nm and more advanced chips. Experts say that although the ban has limited effects on China in the short term, it will restrain China's development in advanced chip making in the long run. Chinese companies will face restrictions from updating the programs they already bought for future use in designing chips. Another important move on the US side was that on August 9th, the US signed into law the CHIPS and Science Act, which provides billions of dollars in new funding to boost domestic research and manufacturing of semiconductors in the US. It is widely understood that this bipartisan act mainly sees China as an opponent to deal with. It is very rare for the US to use government power to provide subsidies for a certain industry. However, to be able to decouple with China and amidst a global semiconductor shortage, the US Congress enacted such an act. On the Chinese side, China Daily published an article saying that CHIPS and Science Act won't solve US problems, attacking the US as always having their eyes on new ways to try and contain China. The article has many cartoons in it and says that it is a silly and a futile mentality. China is busy prospering itself, yet the US is busy fabricating a China threat theory. The US real enemy is within its borders. The two parties struggle with each other and have split US society. As to the EDA ban, the CCP's mouthpiece Global Times published an article entitled US Export controls expected to accelerate China's own EDA development. Is it really the case? Well, inside China, a big scandal just happened with its chip industry. On August 9th, the CCP's Central Commission for Discipline Inspection and the State Supervision Commission announced that it was investigating the head of China's largest state-backed chip investment fund. 3 high-level managers of Sina IC Capital were under investigation, and they were former Director Du Yang Zhenfan, Deputy General Manager of Investment Depart 3, and Liu Yang, former General Manager of Investment Depart 2. And before that, 3 other high-level figures were also investigated or removed. There were Ding Wenwu, General Manager of China National IC Industrial Investment Fund, and Liu Jun, former Deputy Director of the China Development Bank Development Fund Management Department, and Wang Wenzhong, a partner at Hongtai Fund, a Shenzhen-based fund attached to the so-called Big Fund. The Big Fund's formal name is the China Integrated Circuit Industry Investment Fund, which was launched in 2014 with the aim of spurring its semiconductor industry to leapfrog the likes of the US, Taiwan, and South Korea. The organization raised 138.7 billion yuan, or about 20 billion US dollars, for its first fund, and 204 billion yuan for its second fund. Over the years, the fund has provided financing to Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, China's leading chip maker, Yangtze Memory Technologies Company, a maker of flash memory, and a number of smaller companies and funds. But what have all these investments done? Very little or virtually nothing. The trillion yuan investment in China's chip industry hasn't produced any chips or materials that can replace imported ones. On the contrary, 6 senior managers of the big fund are now under investigation for corruption. It was said that Xi Jinping was extremely angry about this. That's why this anti-corruption storm is happening with this chip industry in China. While Xi Jinping took his anger out on these chip industry executives, people are questioning whether it is effective or appropriate to use the Great Leap Forward approach of Mao's era to develop the chip industry of China. Big fund and big money doesn't necessarily bring good results. So people are satirizing Xi Jinping's big money spending campaign in the chip industry that has become a rotten tail project, just like all the unfinished buildings in China. Actually, as early as 2 years ago, I already talked about this rotten tail project. Let's watch that video again that I translated 2 years ago.
就是这里了，这里就是武汉千亿级芯片项目的现场，看样子确实烂尾了。我今天为什么要来这个里亚布拉斯人烟罕至的地方呢？因为我在网上看了一个消息，大陆唯一7纳米光刻机被抵押，武汉千亿投资的芯片项目官宣停摆。武汉红星半导体明星项目，诶，这不就在我们区吗？这是一个不得了的地方。我今天拍的还只是这个地方的冰山一角。今天要探的一角就是这个官宣项目停摆武汉千亿芯片项目的基地。就这围墙，让人完全感觉不到这是投资了上千亿的项目，也太简单粗糙了一点吧。这里更过分，这是糊弄鬼呢！我想进去早就进去了，这里推一下就倒了。施工车辆的入口，这里早已大门紧闭。武汉红星半导体制造有限公司是2017年11月成立的，总部就是位于中国武汉临空巷经济技术开发区。公司的 CEO 就是蒋尚义，他曾在台积电任职10多年，并曾担任 CTO， 就是首席技术官。这个项目主攻逻辑芯片系统集成，总投资1280亿，这些应该就是2018年完成的生产厂房和科研大楼。二期项目是18年9月份动工的，因为这个项目缺少很多必要的制成材料，无法上报国家发改委，所以很多基金和资金都无法导入进来。这里不得不提一下这个项目的主要承包商，就是武汉火炬建设集团有限公司。资金链随时断裂，光刻机都被抵押了。这个光刻机是大陆唯一的7纳米光刻机，价值抵押了5.8个亿，他们全新的都没用过。看看这个火炬集团的风险，吓死人的多的。不仅造芯的主要工具被抵押出去了，而且有20多亿的设备，包括这个切割啊、包装、加工什么设备啊、高压电气设备、炒放结构、肛门窗等等各种可以搬的东西都被搬空了。没办法嘛，没钱都拿去抵债了，就这些固定的东西还留在这里。不得不说，做芯片真是太耗钱了，3年投了上千亿，到现在连一个完整可以使用的大楼都没有建出来。这个项目如果要继续的话，不知道还要砸多少钱。
Well, that was 2 years ago about what happened to Wuhan's 1 billion yuan chip project Hongxin Semiconductor. One might wonder, why can't China develop its own chip technology? Aren't Chinese people smart enough? I think that apart from the corruption and system problems, another important reason is, after decades of the CCP's rule, traditional values and culture have been totally ruined and replaced by the CCP culture that only focuses on quick money and quick success. Nobody cares about hard work, fair competition, and long-term planning and investment anymore. Instead, the so-called 弯道超车 has been promoted and glorified in China as something very good, very clever. 弯道超车 means to overtake on a bend while driving, or to take the opportunity of tight corners or shortcuts to make swift progress. For all these years, the CCP has been talking about 弯道超车 or overtaking other countries by surprise. Actually, for people who are familiar enough with the language environment of the CCP's China, overtaking on the bend has a hidden meaning, which means you can use whatever means, including stealing or robbing or to overtake other countries. As long as you can overtake, any means can be adopted. If you can steal technology or force other countries or companies to transfer technology to you, you are making great contributions to the CCP. Let's watch a short speech by a CCP expert to understand how shameless the CCP's culture has become.
改革开放国门打开，让老外走进来，技术带进来，车带进来，钱带进来，经验带进来，智慧带进来。中国政府没法抄袭老外，但是中国政府干嘛？可以鼓励老百姓创业，和老外干嘛？合伙学会单干，合伙学会单干，合伙学会单干，合伙学会单干。又光40年学会了，我们全部单干了。最后回头一看，厂房攒了，设备攒了，技术攒了，专利攒了，产品攒了，市场攒了，品牌攒了，老外全走完了。现在所以我们的杨外长和我们的王外长才有资格和美国在谈判的时候才那么强硬，你们是没有资格这么给我谈话的。你发现回头看，咱40年就干2次抄袭，一路抄到世界第1排。我们是野蛮抄袭、野蛮复制，什么知识产权、什么专利技术，高再说。可是突然间回头发现2件事情出现了：第一，美国发现了，不让咱抄了；第二个，咱自己也发现了，为啥？咱已经抄到第1排了，再往前抄没图纸了。咱回头想，妈的，图纸从哪来？专利从哪来呢？妈，自己要研发。这个时候，咱政府立刻提出一个，从现在开始要明白但是话不能这么说呀，咱就提出个口号，叫“发展才是硬道理”。现在把它撕下来，换成什么？创新才是第一生产力。这政府老早在5年前、10年前，政府都口号都喊出来，咱只是不知道而已。
Well, the speaker in the video is Zhang Qichao. He is an equity capital expert, advisor to the Bank of China, Agricultural Bank of China, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, China Construction Bank, former general manager of Shirong Real Estate Group, China Enterprise Culture and Eastwood, etc. He has written dozens of books and is appointed by 60 of the most famous universities in China, including Tsinghua University and Peking University, as a visiting professor. In the past 10 years, he has been giving internal training and consultancy to enterprises in over 200 big cities and has affected nearly 12 million students. So, such a high-profile figure, when he said we've done nothing but plagiarism in the past 40 years, he looked so proud and happy. He didn't feel embarrassed at all to talk about it in front of his students. If this has become the mainstream culture and spirit in the CCP's China, what kind of huge money can bring about any meaningful innovation? So, from this perspective, the CCP is not that formidable after all. If the free world is serious enough and guards against the CCP as a robber, a thief, a hooligan, and a criminal organization, and doesn't allow it to take advantage of the free world loopholes again, it is not that difficult at all to beat the CCP. Next, I'd like to do some updates on what I talked about last time regarding the CCP's continued power struggle after its annual Beidaihe meeting. Last time we talked about Chinese Premier Li Keqiang paying a visit to Shenzhen, a city that symbolized China's reform and opening up to the outside world policy. Well, The latest news is the video of Li Keqiang giving a speech about how important it is to stick to the reform and opening up to the outside world policy was blocked on Chinese social media platforms. When people want to watch it, they get this warning which says the video cannot be played due to violation of rules. Even the official report about Li Keqiang hosting a meeting on the Chinese economy cannot be shared. Also, although the official reports about Xi Jinping's activities came out later than that of Li Keqiang's, China Central TV used as much as nearly 20 minutes in this 35-minute evening news program to feature Xi Jinping's activities in Jinzhou and Shenyang City yesterday, that's August 18th. Special shots of Xi Jinping receiving PLA officers were also included in the feature story to show Xi's tight control over the army. So from this, we can see that although there could be fierce power struggles within the CCP, Xi Jinping seems to still be in charge. Li Keqiang's bold speech about the Yellow and Yangtze River will not flow backward could only be his farewell speech before the 20th National Congress, when he's expected to step down. Why not make a few marks before he disappears from the stage? So that could be his real motivation to make those bold remarks that sounded like openly criticizing Xi Jinping for bringing China backwards. Perhaps Xi Jinping does have a historic mission to end the CCP. The only problem is how he chooses to do it. If he cannot choose to dissolve the CCP like Gorbachev did to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, he will have to do it in a self-destructive way. It is very unfortunate that he has chosen the latter. This will no doubt bring many disasters to the entire world, and we still need to work out ways on how to reduce the losses during that process. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my content, please spread my channel and videos or go to my website at jenniferzengblog.com to make a donation or sign up for a membership to support my truth-telling effort. Thank you. See you next time.